Okay, this next document that I'm analyzing is called, is actually a speech made by William Jennings Bryan, um, back in 1896, called the Cross of Gold. And this, William Jennings Bryan was he was a Democrat, back in of course, the late 1800s. He was a politician. He ran a few unsuccessful campaigns, much like Hillary Clinton. Um, but he had the opposite problem that she has. He was actually fighting on principles where she was not, and he a lot of the same issues he brings up in his speech right here are true today. Granted, he was a what is the word I'm looking for? Damn it, isolationist. Um, but he was pushing for more progressive. He was a progressive for his time, for the time. That's what they called themselves, were progressives. And back then, the progressive meaning is a lot different than today, by a long shot. Back then, progressives were considered, they were more religious. They were also the party of the South. To be honest, they were, because no, not to be honest, it's just they were. The Democrats were the party of the South back then, up until Johnson, when he signed the Civil Rights Act. Then they all swapped over to the Republicans. So yeah, that's how they played that. But here, I'll read something here. It sounds a lot like something you'd probably hear something like Bernie Sanders would say. Here we go. I say, and I quote Bryan here. I say it was not a question of persons. It is a question of principles, and it is not with gladness, my friends, that we find ourselves brought into conflict with those who are now arrayed on other sides. Well, I mean, if you analyze this statement right here, it's much like what was going on with Hillary Clinton in the last election, except for she's in the minority in this point. She's in the wrong history. And she was playing the person game, or the identity game, where Bryan was trying to play on principles, just like Bernie Sanders is trying to play on principles. Let's see here. Another. He also says, out there where they erected schoolhouses for education for their young, churches where they praise their Creator, and cemeteries where they rest their ashes of their dead. These people, as we say, are as deserving of consideration of our party as any in this country. And this, he is speaking about the working class, the poor. He was basically a pro union guy back then. I did learn a new word. Fears of a robespierre, which yeah, he was talking. The gentleman from Wisconsin has said that he fears a robespierre. And when he's talking about a robespierre, is Maximilien Francois Marie Isidore de Robespierre. He was a French lawyer and politician who was one of the most influential people in the French Revolution. He believed. Let's see here. Another thing we were talking about. I was reading. Alright, let's see here. I desire to ask him where, in law or in morals, he can find justification for not protecting debtors when, in the Act of 1873 was passed, he now insists that we must protect creditors. And this is at a time when they weren't really doing any protections for anybody, any of the debtor, any of the people who have debt, kind of like today. They give more protections to the creditors than they do to the debtors. Really interesting here. He also talks about Robert Carlyle said in 1878 that this is a struggle between the idle holders of capital and the struggling masses who produce the wealth and pay taxes and pay the taxes of this country. Exactly what is going on today, because the people who have massive wealth have a tendency to suck up all the wealth to them and leave us with nothing. We can struggle and keep trying to get it, but until we have a more equal economic system, because we have to work both on racial and economic issues here in this country. But economics is something that we have a tendency not to actually focus on, at least in the past 40 years or so. And this is here is the version of, this is Reaganomics, but it was in, people were talking about this well before Reagan. And this is back in 1895, like I said before. See here. There are those who believe that if you will only legislate to make the well-to-do prosperous, that their prosperity will leak through on those below. It didn't work back then. It's not going to work now. Come on, people. And then he goes to the Democrat. Because he's also fighting a more corporate Democratic Party back then, like we are right now, which is really interesting. I mean, we're seeing history repeat itself. It's just, whoa. The Democratic idea, however, has been that if you legislate to make the masses prosperous, their prosperity will find its way up through every class which rests upon them. Basically saying that the poor are the ones at the bottom. They're the ones holding everybody else up. If you don't take care of the poor down here, if you don't take care of the people who are working, who you're not taking care of the people who create all the wealth in this country. It's not the people at the top, it's the people at the bottom who create the wealth. Because once you reach a certain point, you should actually stop creating wealth. And you just start pushing your own self-interest. You're not actually helping the country, you're only helping yourself. But yeah, that's what I got from this video, that's what I got from this reading right here. Yeah, and that's the end of my document analysis notes for William Jennings Bryan, Cross of Gold. Speech, 1896.